Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage the Honorable Senator Rick Scott of Florida.
First off, it's nice to be here. I've had the opportunity to come to Concordia since 2019, and it's nice to see the familiar faces, but it's also I'm appreciative that Concordia continues to put these programs together to try to figure out how do we build a better relationship with Latin America. It's, as we all know, it's right in our backyard, and I don't think America has ever put enough effort into how do we promote freedom and liberty and democracy in great economies in Latin America. So let me just start with a simple fact. Communist China has chosen to be America's enemy. It's simple. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. That's why I tell almost everybody I meet, and I've been doing this since I got in the Senate. I've been in the Senate now for 4 years, and it's not a choice that America made. It's a choice the government of Communist China made. So you might be saying, is this talk supposed to be about Latin America, democracy in Latin America, trade, opportunities in Latin America? And absolutely it is. But almost nothing is bigger than the threat to democracy in Latin America and across Western America, Western Hemisphere, than the threat of Communist China, Russia, and Iran. Their influence is horrible. Communist China, Russia, and Iran want to dominate the world. These evil regimes want to end democracy and destroy our way of life. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you look at what the Communist Chinese Party is doing, whether it's the drones, whether it's TikTok, whether it's the spy balloon, whether it's not complying with anything, I mean, what the government of China has done is they don't believe in democracy in our way of life. We're all watching them do in Latin America is clear proof that what I'm saying is absolutely true. So here's what we know. The fight for freedom and democracy is not just a noble cause for us. It's a great noble cause, but it's not just for us. It is an essential cause for the United States and for every American. America's national security depends on it. Where freedom and democracy exist, America has really strong allies. Where freedom and democracy exist, America has trusted trade partners. You only do business with people you trust. Where freedom and democracy exist, America has stability. But where there is tyranny and oppression, all we have is adversaries. Where there's tyranny and oppression, we don't have trade opportunities. Where there's tyranny and oppression, we have no stability. That's why Xi, Putin, and the Ayatollah have no interest in joining the community of nations that we belong to. They only want to rule over the global community. You can't trust anything that comes out of their mouths. That's why they partner with the illegitimate communist regimes in Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. They know that by gaining a foothold in these countries, they can spread their influence like a cancer throughout Latin America and drive out the good power of freedom. Ensuring that doesn't happen starts with promoting free markets and capitalism so the people of these nations can thrive and be independent of the oppression that dictators like Diaz-Canel and Maduro seek to force them into. When I and many others, including many of you here, have been vocal in support of this movement, no one on earth has a pulpit or voice that is as large or influential as the President of the United States. Sadly, we have a president that doesn't care about Latin America. He's confused and he refuses to use his voice and his power to support the righteous cause. He does nothing to promote the cause for freedom in Latin America. Joe Biden and most of the Democrats in Washington have completely abandoned Latin America. Worse, we're seeing this administration actively choose the appeasement of Maduro and Diaz-Canel. This not only emboldens these ruthless, murderous dictators, it also benefits their evil pals in Russia, Communist China, and Iran. I think it's clear what we have to do. Denounce daily, constantly, the communist regimes that are murdering innocent people in Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, and end the current appeasement of these brutal leaders. Make clear that the United States stands with the people of Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, and will support their fight for freedom. We'll do anything to help their fight for freedom. We need to cut ties with the evil regimes, We absolutely have to cut ties with the evil regimes in China, Russia, and Iran that seek to grow their influence, maintain instability in Latin America, and prevent freedom and economic prosperity. Now you might be thinking to yourself, he didn't say anything about trade with Cuba, Venezuela, or Nicaragua. How can you promote capitalism without starting with trade? This is unfortunately the flawed thinking that has led to many of the issues we face around the world today. For decades, American leaders and business and political leaders believed we could push China out of communism towards more trade. It didn't work. It clearly didn't work. What we did instead was create a super economy in China that has even more resources and wealth to assert their influence, their communist influence, and bully others on the world stage, which they do every day. And now so much of America's economy has become dependent on communist China. For example, why would we depend on China for anything but something as simple as life-saving drugs? We cannot trade our way to democracy and freedom in Latin America either, not yet. First, we have to crack down on the evil regimes there and remember that as long as these dictators are in power, every dollar of business we do with Cuba, Venezuela, or Nicaragua does nothing for the people and simply funds the oppression of the evil regimes. That's why I'm fighting to pass my Democracy Act, which would hold the illegitimate communist Cuban regime accountable through severe sanctions and unprecedented financial pressure. I'm proud to have the support of Senators Marco Rubio, Tim Scott, Tommy Tuberville, and Roger Marshall in this bill. I'm proud that we have a lot of representatives in the House, Byron Donalds, Alex Mooney, Mario Diaz-Balart, and Maria Salazar, who introduced a companion bill in the House. It's been said that for decades, Cuba has been the root of instability in Latin America and a constant threat to the national security of the United States. The illegitimate communist Castro Diaz-Canel regime harbors terrorist groups, has eliminated free and fair elections, threatens to arbitrarily arrest critics, puts kids in prison after a peaceful protest, journalists and political activists, and props up other ruthless dictators like Maduro in Venezuela and Ortega in Nicaragua, while providing a foothold for the evil regimes of Russia, Iran, and Communist China to spread their influence. Diaz-Canel has even cut internet connectivity to hide his brutal response and silence the people. Now more than ever, the Biden administration needs to show up and do something. They need to stand and lead the world in support of freedom and democracy in Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. Unfortunately, Biden failed to help restore cellular and internet service, which he could have done, to the island, to Cuba, during this largest protest seen there in the last 60 years. My act authorizes the president to use all means possible to provide internet to the Cuban people on the island. The power of action on this from the president cannot be overstated. Passing my act is the only part of the solution, but it would be a great way to get started right now. We know that a free and prosperous Cuba would liberate the Cuban people and eliminate the source of socialist cancer in our hemisphere. The same is true for Venezuela and Nicaragua. And we are praying that we don't see a drift towards socialism and communism in Colombia and Brazil, now that those nations are under the leftist leadership of Petro and Lula. As I've said before, it's time for President Biden to stop his failed appeasement, show up and punish the communist regimes for their crimes, and make clear to our enemies and partners alike around the world that the time for strength in the fight for freedom in Cuba and the rest of Latin America is now. But this fight doesn't just fall on the president. We all have to be willing to do this. I believe a new day of freedom is coming for Latin America, and we will see a return to free markets and capitalism. Evil has to be driven out, and the time to act is right now. We have a generational opportunity to make this happen. We can't stop, we can't blink, we can't appease. We have to keep up this fight each and every day. We have to do everything we can to call out these regimes for what they're doing, and also demand the Biden administration show up and European leaders show up. I want to thank each of you for what you do. I want to thank you for caring. The United States stands for the people of Latin America in their fight for freedom and democracy. If you go around the United States, Americans believe in freedom and democracy in Latin America, and they care about it. And we stand with the people of every country who has shown, these countries have shown incredible strength and courage in the face of adversity. You can't imagine what's going on in Cuba and Venezuela and Nicaragua right now, and the fight for freedom and what these individuals are going through. So I want to thank each and every one of you for what you do. I want to thank Concordia for putting this together. And my belief is we have the opportunity, through holding these regimes accountable, to create free trade and better opportunities for the people of Latin America. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.